everybody. How you doing? I'm Wendy Williams. Check out the music scene in Africa. You know, the artists coming out of the continent have taken the world by storm, from hip-hop to R&B to Afro-pop. They're crossing over into mainstream and doing it with an African flavor and flair. We love it. Well, my first guest, M.I., is a Nigerian rapper who's taken the Niger hip-hop scene to a whole nother level. In just 2 years, he's just absolutely brilliant and successful, creative lyrically. I'd like to welcome M.I., Mr. Incredible.
I'm applauding myself because I'm really honored to be on the Wendy Williams show. Like, I've been your fan for forever. Yeah.
Now, I understand that you went to school here in the States.
I did. I went to college from 1999 to about 2003. Then I moved back to Nigeria and started working actually before I quit to start music.
So how did your family feel about you giving up an education for the rap scene?
Well, I mean, I think with most musicians, your parents kind of know, like probably when we were like 6 years old,
yes.
they have it at the back of their minds, like he's probably gonna stick with music, you know, eventually.
Yeah.
So they were really supportive, and they've really been, like, they're my biggest fans now. My dad calls me M.I. You know, that's obviously not my real name, but he calls me M.I., and it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, all the millions of dollars that you've made and all the albums that you've sold, I'm sure help. You know, anybody's parents would, I guess, be like, okay, no school, fine. Lyrically, M.I., everybody, has been compared to some of the great poets and, you know, just really prolific lyrics. Where do you get these intense thoughts and, you know, your brilliant pen for writing?
Well, a lot of my influences are just songwriters. Like, I used to listen, at the same time as I'd listen to hip hop, like I'd listen to people like, you know, Bob Marley and Fela.
Gotcha.
You know, that were just songwriters and would express themselves. And I always have that at the back of my mind, like, if I'm gonna say something that's, you know, a story about where I'm from, like, nobody can do that better than I can. Mm-hmm. So that's, you know, and then it's just a question of how to say it. You know, so if you already know what to say, then it's easier to find a way to say it. So,
and through music, you're able to express your political beliefs as well as, you know, other things, which is great. You put a little bit of education in the medicine, so to speak. It makes it go down better, and I know your fans love it. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm in my late 20s. I don't want to. I'm sad about the fact that I wish I'd started a lot younger. You know.
Well.
Yeah, people say I look a lot younger than I.
Well, you
really
do,
am.
kiddo, and that's why I'm looking at you and I'm like, oh, his age is very ambiguous, you know. But
I like that.
you know, yes, very nice. So, what do you think the difference is, M.I., between the hip hop scene in America versus the hip hop scene on the continent?
Well, I mean, I think the soul of the music is the same, because when we started hearing hip hop in Nigeria, in Africa, we were like, what? We immediately connected. You know what I mean? Like, way back, you have hip-hop fans that have been following hip-hop since the beginning, you know, and but the stories are different, because there are a lot of things that happen here that we don't really understand there.
Yes.
And probably a lot of things that happen there that people here wouldn't readily, you know, understand. But I think it's important for the two markets, or the two stories, to come together, because I think that's the completion of, you know, who black people are, you know what I mean, the African part of it, you know, and the stories about what has happened as they've spread across the world.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I'm really looking forward, you know, as we continue to grow in the Nigerian and African hip-hop scene, to starting to work with American artists to, you know, to share those stories.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I think there's a lot like that, I mean, we've obviously learned everything that we know about hip-hop from America, but I think now is the time that America can start to learn from Africa, you know what I mean, based on the stories we have, you know, the traditions we have. I think it's interesting what's happening in Africa.
Yeah. So now, who are some of these artists that you would love to work with? Because you're giving me a little Kanye here, although I've heard your name in Jay-Z circles as well.
Well, yeah, I think what happens is, like, when, especially in Nigeria, when I came out, people immediately were like, oh, what does he remind us of? And I think that happens a lot when there's a new act. They always, like, quick to try to match you up with someone. Yes. I'm a huge fan of Kanye. I'm a huge fan of Jay-Z. You know, a lot of artists, Lil Wayne, Drake. We love what Drake's doing now. You know, and even like a lot of underground people, Talib Kweli, Mos Def. You know, just
the conscious rappers.
Yeah, I love hip hop, and yeah, well, I think that answers the question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sort of got lost.
No, it's fine. I mean, you as an artist are extremely successful in Nigeria, and you are definitely one of those people on the bubble, so to speak, to make it big, not just the continent, not just in Nigeria, but here in the States as well. What's your plan? What's your plan of action to come to Brooklyn and make yourself heard, and Compton and the neighborhoods around America?
Well, I think, and this is a perfect time to say this, I think that's part of the importance of what BET is doing now. You know what I mean? Like, starting to connect, the markets and connect the people and the networking that's taking place, even at the awards, and the general outlook of how BET is starting to look towards Africa. I think that's fantastic, and we're very grateful to them for that. And it's easier in Africa because it's a short plane trip, to go to South Africa or Kenya to do, to network and put your music out there. But what we're trying to do, what our focus is now with the label, is to release the second album in Nigeria, but sort of have a little more international appeal. And then when we come out here, then it's easier for people because the language, even though you're speaking English, the language is a little bit different. So when you're talking with more of a global audience in mind, then, it's easier to do a video that people here can watch and go, oh, okay.
Well, because a lot of artists, in Africa do speak native language in their music. And you've chosen to speak English. Yeah. Although, after listening to some of your music, I do find that I have to back it up and say, wait, what did he say? But that's not your first language.
Yeah.
But why have you chosen to rap English?
Well, actually, English in Nigeria is the first language. That is the language of everybody. But it's a national language. But a lot of people, like, Nigeria is a very, very unique country. And because it has, I think, 300, 400 different languages across the country, and it's very diverse people. But everybody sort of understands some version of English. We have pidgin English, which is really absolutely cool.
Yes.
So we tend towards pidgin English, between English and pidgin English. But for my music, what I always had the back of my mind was, if I pigeonhole myself into just one language, and I'll just speak to those people alone. And I wanted to speak, to Nigeria and Africa.
Yes.
And so everybody, in Africa sort of understands enough English to be able to listen to your song,
How many languages do you speak?
I'm actually like an English speaker, really, and I speak Hausa, which is a language in the north of Nigeria, and then I understand my own language where I'm from, Jukun. I wasn't born where I'm from, Jukun. So I can understand, I can't speak really well without being laughed at.
How were you raised? Were you raised with your mom and dad in the house? Do you have lots of siblings?
Yeah, I have 2 younger brothers, and my dad is an evangelist, like in Nigeria, and really simple, I grew up in a lovely place called Jos, very beautiful, very artistic. And you guys should come check out Nigeria. It's a beautiful place. Forget the stories. Everybody's really kind and
what stories? I'm global now. I want to see the world, including Nigeria.
Yeah,
Now look, did you grow up in a big house? Were you a bit privileged? I'm trying to learn a little bit more about your early years.
Well, we were okay. We were okay. I would say middle class in terms of what's attainable in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Nigeria is very funny. There is poverty, but it's a sort of community that everybody eats. Like you don't really see homeless people the same way like it translates in other parts in the world. Like,
gotcha.
You might not have a lot of money, but there's a lot of extended families. Everybody sort of looks out for everybody.
Gotcha.
Especially if not in like the big cities. But so I grew up in Jos. It was a small city. We were okay. My dad was a minister, so obviously we weren't the richest of rich, but we were okay. I can't, and I was able to go to good schools and
yes,
be well educated.
All right, so let's talk about you and your relationship with P Squared.
Yeah.
I was listening to your song Safe, and it seemed as though you were maybe throwing a few darts. P Square way?
No. P Square, they actually come from Jos too.
Oh.
They're ethnically not from Jos. Like, that's not where they're from by their ethnicity, but they're from Jos, and they're sort of like big brothers to the game, because they left from Jos to Lagos. Lagos is like our probably Atlanta now. I think that's where most of the industry
where it's popping.
Yeah, exactly. So they moved first, and they did really well. So when I was moving to Lagos, it wasn't, such a big deal. And then when I did the song Safe, actually what I did was I just used a lot of lines from a lot of people's songs and then made it into another song. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
I picked lines from, and everybody sort of like listened to it like, what the heck? Who's this guy?
You were just sampling. That's what you musicians do. Sample beats and sample lyrics.
Yeah. So, but they loved it. They loved it. We have a great relationship. If they're upset, then I really will be scared because they've been smiling with me for the last 3 years. So maybe they're really planning something.
They're going to be here on this special, so I'll be sure to ask them. I'll get back at you. Before I let you go, I must ask for the ladies. You seem like a really nice, successful, moneyed young man. Are you married? Do you have children? No. Are you in love?
Wow. I can answer definitively 2 questions. Okay. I'm not married. I don't have children yet. I'm hoping to take care of those 2, very soon. And
not too soon, young man. Enjoy your success. You know what I mean? Enjoy your success. No babies yet. There's no need. You've got the rest of the world to conquer. Yeah. Now, far be it from me to boss you around and tell you what to do. But
I take your advice very highly.
Well,
sorry, Mike. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. I enjoy giving advice, not necessarily because I've lived it, but because, if I see something, like what I see in you as a man, you're not quite 30 years old, you come from a nice family background, and I hate to talk about the money, but money is very important. You've sold millions of CDs and made lots of money, and there's plenty of girls who want to chip away at your fortune and trap you, and you need to keep yourself as free as a bird to fly around the world and have sleepless nights to build your empire. Yeah. Okay? I wish you well.
Thank you very much. I'm just still imbibing that advice. And thank you, I really appreciate it. We're really grateful for the relationship that, African Americans are starting to show to Africa. And really, like, through movies and music, they've always spoken well of Africa, and we appreciate that. And I'm glad to be here hanging out with you, it's a big deal. I'm going to tweet it as soon as I'm done. And my timeline is probably going to blow up,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one more thing. I want to ask you about your vices, because, it's nice we're having this conversation, but I'm checking you out.
Yeah.
I'm checking you out, and I don't see anything. I don't see diamonds and all that other kind of stuff. But I'm wondering, do you drive a fast car or a fleet of cars? Do you live in a fabulous place? What are your vices?
Well, Lagos is sort of weird because it's a really congested city. So it's not one of those places where a big fast car is really gonna translate yet.
Okay.
And because I travel a lot, I'm looking to buy a nice car for myself towards the end of the year, like a really nice car.
What are we looking at?
Probably a range, like a really pimped out range. I'm looking towards that. But for right now, I think my work is my vice because I personally just feel like it's time for African musicians to start to go all the way. And so if your focus is that, then there's not a lot of time to do a lot else. You always have to be in the studio at the same time satisfying the Nigerian and African markets.
Yes.
And spreading, because Africa is huge, Nigeria alone is, 150, 200 million people. And then you're trying to spread to Africa, which is another close to 1 billion people.
Yeah.
And then trying to think of, okay, what are we going to do in America? So there's not a lot of time. I think ask me this in like 5 years when I'm, more settled and I've conquered the world. Amen.
There you go. Well, I think it's safe to say that the MI stands for Mr. Incredible.
Thank you.
My new friend.
I'm blushing.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, the official greeting of the Wendy Williams show is, how you doing? And it's how you doing, but it makes everyone laugh when you make this face. Yeah. So, can you teach me how to say, how you doing? In pidgin?
In pidgin English.
Don't forget to dim your eyes.
Do the face? Okay.
And the hands. How you doing?
Well, you should say, I think this is probably the coolest way to say right now, is waiting day. And waiting day is really it's how you doing, really, that's what it is. So you say waiting day, man. Waiting day, man. That's
not how we say it. Stop trying to be cool. We say it like this, right? Waiting day.
Night, just stand up.